Good evening. Welcome to the Tooele City Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, September 14th, 2022. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would all please rise and repeat the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda is our roll call. Commissioner Hammer. Here. Commissioner Gochus.
Present.
Commissioner Sloan. Here. Commissioner Hamilton. Here. Commissioner Jensen. Here. Commissioner Smith. Here. I'm Commissioner Robinson. I am here. We recognize Commissioner Dunn, our alternate in the back, and excuse, well, I don't guess, do we need to excuse him? Excuse our new Commissioner, John Proctor, who is also not here. Recognize Mr. Agard, Mr. Bolser, Mr. Hanson, and our council members Manzione and Hanson, who are with us as well. Next on the agenda, a public hearing and recommendation on a zoning map amendment request by Hallmark Homes to reassign the zoning for about 7.3 acres at the intersection of 3 O'Clock Drive and SR 36 to the MR12 multifamily residential zoning district. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Commissioners. This zoning map involves the 7.36 acre parcels highlighted in red on the aerial photograph. The 7.36 acres involves both properties on each side of the intersection of 3 O'Clock Drive and SR 36. The properties are currently zoned NC Neighborhood Commercial and are surrounded to the north, west, and south by properties zoned R17 Residential. Properties to the south and east are zoned R17 Residential and RR1 Rural Residential. And then there is some general commercial zoning located to the northeast of the subject properties. That is the location of the UDOT road facilities. The land use map was recently amended by the City Council to the high-density residential designation. The high-density residential designation encourages the MR8, MR12, MR16, and MR20 multifamily residential zones. When the City Council changed the land use designation to high-density residential, they did so with a condition that the property be limited in density to MR10 or 10 units per acre. The requested MR12 zoning does comply with the land use map designation of high-density residential. The zoning being requested by the applicant is the MR12 zoning district. In order to accomplish the 10 unit per acre limitation placed on the property by the City Council, the MR12 is the next available zoning district to permit 10 units per acre. The MR8 zone permits a maximum of 8 units per acre and therefore does not function to satisfy the 10 unit per acre density limitation placed on it by the City Council. The applicant did provide a concept plan for the Commission's reference. Please keep in mind that this is not a hearing to discuss site plan issues or subdivision issues, and we should focus entirely upon the zoning of the property being MR12. This concept plan is included to help demonstrate the applicant's intentions for the property. However, the concept plan has not been reviewed by staff for conformance to site plan and subdivision qualifications. This item is a public hearing and notices were sent to property owners within the noticing radius as well as posted as required by law. Staff has received numerous written comments regarding this amendment request. We did receive 2 additional comments just prior to the meeting tonight. Those were forwarded to the Planning Commission for your information. We also had received 3 written comments prior to that as well. Those were also forwarded to the Planning Commission for your information. So that's our report on the proposed zoning map amendment. If you have any questions, I, Paul, or Jim would be happy to try and answer those for you.
Thank you, Mr. Agard. Any questions for staff from the Commission? If not, this item does require a public hearing. If you are here and would like to address this item, now is the time for you to come forward. We're going to limit comments to 3 minutes, and we ask that you allow everybody to speak once before we consider having repeats. So the public hearing is now open if anyone wants to come forward. If you wouldn't mind, state your name, and then when you're done speaking, the list is back in the back. If you wouldn't mind going back there to sign it as well, please.
I'm Jay Linder, and I live right next to that property. I
don't want apartments, so I'm going to say that now because I didn't say it last time. But have we taken the school system in consideration here? Our school's packed, so we're going to load it up with more people, or are we going to have another school built so we can pay more taxes? Because you guys, my taxes have skyrocketed, and I don't want to see it. So the map shows everything to 3 o'clock. You can't get out of 3 o'clock. That is a nonstop hazard waiting for somebody to get killed. What's it going to take? And I checked, stoplights that everybody has planned, there's no funding yet for that. That's not been proposed. So I want to make sure that when we consider this, that we're considering everybody. Because I really don't want to see that much traffic up and down my street. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to come forward?
My name is Thomas Stevenson. I also live on 3 O'Clock Drive. This is fun. We do this. We've done this multiple times. But yes, I have the same concerns as my neighbor Jay. I have 4 young boys, and they love to go up and down the road. And I'm just concerned for their safety and the congestion. And yeah, I don't want apartments either. It's kind of, it's going to be developed. If it's not this company, it's going to be another. I'm positive. But yes, I don't want something rivaling the Freedom Tower outside my window. So, yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Edwards. I live at 1201 High New Lane. My property backs up to the property on 1220 South. The back side of my property is where your residential planning is, and I'm concerned about that fire break. Somebody's been trying to cover it up, causing more flooding in the neighborhood than it has since the builder, Matthew Arbshay, who is now deceased, he put it there before my house was finished. I saw several homes being flooded before they were even finished, until that fire break went there, and somebody's been trying to close it up. And regardless of what you build, somebody needs to fix that area to have proper drainage, or I'm going to lose my home, and I won't be the only one.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Anyone else want to come forward?
I'm Michael Nager. I'm stepping in for Hallmark. So there are no plans for apartments. The plan for this is 58 townhomes, just as a point of reference for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Nager. Anyone else?
My name's Cindy Maxfield, and I live just west of 3 O'Clock Drive. The way this is shown, that all those townhomes would be put, traffic would be at the top of 3 o'clock. What's going to happen when there's a fire there? How are all those people going to get out? And why would you put high-density homes with several children on a highway? People go 55 to 70 miles an hour right there. Why would you allow that? And I'm tired of us being told that it's a good fit for our area. We do not feel like it's a good fit for our area. So please take the residents into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Macfield.
Hi, I'm Kalani Mascherino. I live on 2 O'Clock Drive, and I am very concerned because I drive SR36 like the rest of my neighbor friends. And you're just taking your life in your hands when you are pulling out onto 36 and when you're trying to slow down enough to turn off of 36. And again, like the last time this was proposed, what this map isn't showing is all the other hundreds of homes that have been finished. Everything has been finished, down to UDOT, the railroad, Education Lane. So there are still hundreds more homes and vehicles that way. And then to the north, we have the school, we have UDOT. So we're already dodging plow trucks and sand trucks and all that kind of stuff. And then we're dodging all the school buses. So school buses are going back and forth, all the traffic to Dugway, South Rim's even busier now. Everybody that lives south of us, there are certain times in the day where you just don't leave, you change your course so then you're weaving down all the other side streets trying to get to a light to get back on Main Street. There's not a safe left-hand turn until you get to Vine and Main Street. So where are the school buses with all the kids from Rush Valley and everywhere trying to get to Settlement Canyon? And yes, Settlement Canyon is chock full. So there's several of us in the neighborhood that also use the charter schools, or they commute to West for their kids to be in the German program. So everybody, we're all on the move, trying to get where we need to be. And I just really feel like if we're quarter-acre lots next to it, continue with the quarter-acre lots the rest of the way. And again, until UDOT does something, and I know they've proposed putting a light at Coleman and at Gophers and all the way down, that's just the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Clearly, they've never driven it, because how is a truck gonna stop? The gravel truck I followed from Primary Children's today, they had the extra trailer, they did not use their blinker, it was a giant red old Peterbilt from Grantsville, and they just weaved in and out all the way and they cut me off at where it slows down to 1 by Gophers. And you just hold your breath, and every day it's a challenge to get in and out of our own neighborhood. So I love people and I would love new neighbors, but I don't need that many neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maraschino. Anyone else? Before you come back a second time, let's make sure that nobody else wants to come up a first time. Is that okay? Okay. So hold on, just Mrs. Allred behind you. Sorry, I wasn't pointing at you, I was pointing at her.
Well, I already submitted my email about my concerns, and you do have it, but I just wanted to bring it up to everybody. Where's the water coming from? We're in a drought. When I came to I think the first meeting, one of the water tanks had been completely depleted that year. We're on water rationing now. Can anybody answer me where the water's going to come from? That's my biggest concern. You guys can't answer that, or?
We can answer in the fact that City Code provides requirements for any builders to bring water with them.
But where are they getting it from is my question.
That is up to them.
That's above our pay grade.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
They
think
have
we're
to do
kind of draining from, because doesn't it all come from the same place? I'm not a water expert, but doesn't it, if you build another well, doesn't it come from the same aquifer? Is that what it's called? I don't know. That's my biggest concern, and the traffic as well. And the schools. I already brought that to your attention, so thank you.
thank you, Mrs. Allred.
I'm Darlene Pierce. I live a little farther away, but my husband and I came here to live in a smaller place. And if we get the chance, we're going back to Wyoming. It's too big here. And if you've ever been on SR 36 at certain times of the day, it's impossible to get out there. You sit and wait for 10 minutes with the Dugway traffic and the depot traffic. And it's the other way in the morning when it goes the other way. And then, like the gentleman talked about, the school the traffic is outrageous for the school too, and it's full. And then we get our property taxes increased again to build more schools. And sometimes you just have to say, sorry, we're going to have to stop this until we can accommodate, we can take care of what we've already started, which there's not enough money to finish the high school, I've heard. So, how do you have money to build another elementary or junior high or whatever they're going to plan when we get these other residences? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pierce.
Hi, I'm Gary Allred. I live directly across the street from where the development wants to be. And since they built all those houses down below us, my water pressure has dropped down to where I've had to install extra sprinkler lines just to water the lawn that I have existing. And for the traffic, I'm lucky enough that I can back out and turn and don't have to back out on the main street to get on the highway, or I'd probably never get on it. And I don't know if you guys have ever been out there and seen how many gravel trucks travel towards Stockton because of all the gravel pits that are out there. And when they come by our house, they're doing probably 60, 65 miles an hour. You wouldn't dare back out because they're fully loaded. They'd never be able to stop. And so that we've noticed too that for the 3 o'clock drive, the people trying to come up there to get on the street, you just wait and wait because you don't dare pull out in front of the traffic that's coming. So I think that the traffic is a real big issue on that highway. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allred. Anyone else? Yeah. Okay.
So concerning the water, I do own enough water to support this development. And then concerning the number of units, spent a lot of time working with the city council, and they came up with the MR12 and the stipulation that for this particular development, there wouldn't be any more than 10 units per acre. We worked on that to reduce the number of homes that would be going in there for this particular property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nager. Anyone else want to come forward before we close the public hearing? Ms. Edwards, okay.
Yes, sir. I wanted to say that last month, I had 8 to 10 inches of water in my backyard. My husband had the property regraded when we first moved in because we were aware that the fire break had been built, but we weren't certain that that water was going to, that fire break was going to accommodate all the water that was coming down during the monsoon seasons. And it was quite a bit. And I have neighbors who were flooded. I don't understand why they're not here today, but I'm in my backyard. I have a little garden. Some of that got flooded out. So I don't understand if they can't clean that area up. There's an old rust-colored 1960s rug right up against my fence. It's been there for a few years. And it seems like people are covering, like I said, that fire break up. And there have been these four-wheelers or whatever wheelers that you call them that have been riding back there. And there was once a fire. And they came through, cut my fence down to get through my backyard to handle that fire. What were they going to do when we have those raging fires in the summer? And not to forget the floods. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Last chance. Okay. Go ahead and close the public hearing. Bring it back to the commission for any questions, concerns, comments from the commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible to put a couple of our city council people on the spot a little bit? by way of a question.
I'm fine with that.
It's been alluded to and discussed, and I think everybody would be interested in a little bit of background on where, as the applicant just mentioned, the discussions with the city council regarding a 10 unit per acre maximum density there. Can you shed a little light of what the attitude of the council was, what helped them determine that that was okay? I'm struggling a little bit, and I'll be upfront with you. I'm struggling a little bit. I feel like if the applicant's been working with the city and has come to something that both sides of the table are okay with, I kind of need to know what position the city is in there. Roger's not here tonight, so guide me. And I apologize for throwing you under the bus, one of the many buses.
Well, I don't feel thrown under the bus, that's okay. And Councilman Hanson can chime in too if he'd like, but from what I remember, we've been here before. We've been here a number of times, and most of the time when density was requested, it was MR25, and which we don't have anymore, so that would now be MR20, which is a lot more dense than this. And knowing where the location is, I know we don't like to hear that a highway is good for high density, but a highway is actually good for high density because it's right onto the highway. So it's better traffic control than being embedded in a neighborhood. But so they kept coming back. We had, I don't know if you guys remember how many, but at least
We've had
2 or 3 requests, if I can remember right. And so we finally decided that if we wanted to not have that conversation anymore with that maximum density number. So when we did the zoning map amendment, we said a maximum of 10 units per acre because we felt like that was way better than, I can't remember what the first one was, the number of apartments that wanted to be built in that small, and I agree with what's been said. That's a small area for a big, huge apartment complex. It just doesn't work. So we figured that would max out the number of units that somebody could even request, so we didn't have to have that whole maximum high density number again. Is that,
Yeah.
what do you remember?
Yeah, and we're talking about 2 units per acre difference from what they could have without even having a change at all. Sorry about that, my mic's off. But anyway, it's already, they could have MR8 without any change, asking for the 12, but we didn't allow the 12, we're just allowing the 8. That was the discussion or 10, I'm sorry. The discussion we had with the builder after we went through several of them and figured it, anyway, that's why we ended up there.
Okay, thank you both. Any other questions, concerns, comments from the commission? Commissioner Hammer?
So I have a concern. Safety and traffic came up quite a few times. I guess I can ask the city council too, like, have you had any discussions about that and how we can manage that?
There was one I don't have, sorry, not being prepared, I don't have a bunch of stuff here, but if I remember right, and maybe the staff can remember, I think there was one traffic study done in one of the first ones, and based on that, I think it was one of the MR20. I don't remember. I better not say it because I don't remember exactly. There was one traffic study done, and
I think it was for the parcel across the street.
For
this one as well?
It was for
Okay.
this parcel. Oh, he probably knows.
All
Yes,
right, we'll
there
let
was a
Mr.
traffic
Hanson come
study
up.
done. Oh, look at that. You're prepared.
Mr. Hanson, please.
Yes, Paul Hanson with City Engineer. The city received an updated traffic study in January of 2022. This was the second update. As the commission and the council remember, we asked them to go back and modify their scope to include additional other items. And at that time, their study was based on, I believe, 74 units, the higher density, which was being proposed at that, 72 units, excuse me. And the outcome of that study indicated that this product did not add additional traffic beyond what would naturally be there and would not be anything that would add or encourage UDOT to make any requirements to it. So there's no question that adding 72 units or the reduced number that they're now coming back adds cars, but the traffic study says it doesn't reach that trigger point to require other future improvements. And the statement was made earlier that there is a signal proposed at Coleman when it meets the traffic warrants. That is a state highway, but that is where the signal would be placed, not at 3 o'clock. Other questions?
Well, I think we could add to that also that with the bus, there will still be bus traffic because there are schools, but the bus garage is actually moving to the industrial depot in December, I believe.
Correct.
And that then the city will be taking over that property and there won't be the bus traffic coming in and out of the garage right there, which is, I think will be a big improvement for the neighborhood, I hope. And there was one other, but I can't remember now, one other comment.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Lisa.
Ask Paul a question before he leaves.
Paul, before you leave, Commissioner Stone.
We've had a lot of discussion, and you've heard it again tonight, about the speed limit in that area. And I think all of us would agree that setting it at 35 versus 50 or 55, whatever it is there,
Right.
a mile south of where it currently changes now would be beneficial to a lot of us. Does the traffic study, which talked about the lights, does that deal with changing that speed limit down?
It does not of itself indicate that, but the city has requested UDOT several months ago to study the possibility of reducing the speed to 1220. But we have not heard back the results of their study, but that is an inquiry that we made to UDOT.
Awesome, thank you.
That was my other thing. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Good information. Anything else from members of the commission?
I've got
Commissioner Stone.
a statement, and if you're ready for a motion, if nobody else has stuff. Obviously, we've all been here before several times, and I think short of the fire break, Mrs. Edwards, we've heard most of these already, and that's probably something that needs to be dealt with somewhere other than this particular body, but you're right, it needs to be dealt with. The way, despite the fact that the traffic study said that UDOT doesn't think it hits whatever trigger point it is, at the end of the day, they're the arbiter. And the problem that this creates for us and for you goes back to a funding one. Saying that it calls for a stoplight, but no funding has been done yet. UDOT doesn't work that way. UDOT is much like a bank where you have to go apply for a loan and then they have to turn around and prove that you don't need it before they'll give it to you. UDOT looks at an area and puts it on their plan after it's done. They don't put in a light, they don't drop a speed limit, they don't widen a road, they don't put in left turn lanes, they don't do right in, right out until the use is already there proving that it's needed. And the rhetorical question of what has to happen before UDOT figures that out, I don't know. We know what has happened historically in Lake Point, and before the Mid-Valley Highway was funded, that UDOT and the Transportation Commission had to come out here and had to get caught up in 3-hour closures. They had to get caught up in delays. They had to get caught up in accidents. Heaven forbid we're dealing with that here. But in the reality, that is how they work. There won't be funding for anything they do, including stoplights, until their own studies show that the load is there to do it. And that goes again to the schools. Councilwoman Manzione alluded to the moving of the bus garage, and that's going to help that. That's not going to do a lot for you that are trying to make a left turn onto a 3 o'clock drive. I'd be curious, and nobody needs to answer, it's a rhetorical question, how many of you called UDOT and said anything about that intersection? How many of us have called and said, you know what, I'd sure rather see all this traffic going by at 35 miles an hour than 55 miles an hour? What are you going to do about these gravel trucks? All these things we all drive that area every day. I'm down by Gopher 5 times a day. and I've dodged the same traffic that you guys have. But the fact is, we keep saying we don't want all of these problems. We don't want all of these people. We don't want apartments. Well, these aren't apartments. Everybody's heard you. We don't want apartments there. And yet everybody comes back and says, well, we need affordable housing. And there are people on this commission that are gonna argue against what I'm saying. And that's fine. But the reality is, we don't have the ability to put an average, quote unquote, single-family home there. And Ms. Mascherino can tell you what the average sales price of a single-family home in Tooele County is right now. Let me tell you, your kids and your grandkids aren't buying that house. Your kids and your grandkids are going to be in your basement until you're long gone. Because until we figure out a way to get some higher-paying jobs into this valley, your kids aren't going to be able to work here. They're going to all be on 36 heading for Salt Lake, which just exacerbates the problem. On the other hand, here's a builder who's got a long history of building good product to counter the argument that some would say that some of those products are junky products, which we've heard in this room before. This is a builder that has built hundreds of homes in this community over the past decade and a half that I'm aware of. They're not going anywhere. They're not flipping this stuff. They're interested in the community. And the fact of the matter is, guys, you want a stoplight at 3 o'clock drive? This has to get full. Ms. Mascherino mentioned everything's built out to the west. And that still hasn't triggered UDOT? If this doesn't do it, I don't know what to tell you, but I will say this, it's currently zoned for neighborhood commercial. Unless they want to put my long, skinny Costco in there, I don't think that's happening. And it wouldn't solve your problems in any event. But at some point, you've got a person that's interested in this property that has worked hard to accommodate as many people as they can. It's not perfect. Not everybody's happy with it. But I'm happy that at least they came in willing to talk. The last 3 we've had in here were dead set on MR25 and MR16, and none of us thought that was right. I like this compromise, and I think it'll be the driver in solving the SR36 problems that we're all worried about. But I got sad news for you guys. Those problems will not go away, and they absolutely will not go away without more of a need. That said, Mr. Chairman, if you're prepared for a motion, I'll make one.
I'll make a comment real quick.
Mr. Hamilton first.
Yeah, if you guys don't mind. I'm concerned about the rock trucks as well. I'm the chairman of the Downtown Alliance, and my main goal is to make our downtown walkable, visitable, and for people to walk around and enjoy. So I'd like to keep the rock trucks off the road too, but right now it's not going to happen. Slowing them down is very important to me as well. So I'm working my tail off on both ends to try to get other avenues done so we can get the trucks off of Main Street. That's a big deal. I agree and I understand completely. So trust me, I'm working on that from my end. But it takes time. The city also recognizes that, I can guarantee as well, and they're working their tails off as well. Marisa, we've discussed this many times. So I understand that completely. And like Chris said, until we see a need, until UDOT sees a need for any of this stuff, they're not going to do anything. So I encourage everybody to reach out to UDOT and let them know your concerns about the traffic in this area. Let them know everything that you feel about it. They're going to be as responsive as they can, but I encourage that as well. I've been doing it myself, so I'm on your side with the truck traffic.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. Any other comments from the commissioners? If not, I will entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Chairman, I move we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the 3 o'clock drive zoning map amendment request by Russ Tolbert, representing Hallmark Homes, to reassign the zoning to the MR12 multifamily residential zoning district, application number P22-992, based on the findings subject to the conditions listed in the staff report dated August 30th, 2022.
There's a motion for a positive recommendation from Commissioner Sloan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jensen. Any discussion on the motion?
I'd just like to make a comment.
Commissioner Goches.
I just wanted to state that the developers met their obligation of providing the traffic study, the water requirements, and that they did come to a compromise with City Council. So when I studied this issue, I didn't find any issues that could help me to render a negative decision, although it's not favorable to those who live in that neighborhood. As Councilmember Hanson stated, it's already zoned for 8 units. We're only raising it to 2. And I did a thorough and comprehensive study to be able to make a good decision, and I just couldn't find a negative issue there that would render a negative decision. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Mr. Bolzer.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman. There's been some discussion about a condition that was placed on the land use map, limiting it to 10 units per acre. If that's something that the commission wants to continue with, having that limitation, I would recommend that you include that as a condition of this decision as well.
I would adjust my motion to include that.
Still seconded, Commissioner Jensen? Okay, so added. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll take it to a vote. Commissioner Hammer?
Aye.
Commissioner Gochus?
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
No.
Chair votes aye. That moves forward with a positive recommendation, 5-1. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. Goes to the City Council now. Next on the agenda, public hearing and decision on a conditional use permit request by Epic Summer Recreation to permit automobile sales and rental use on 0.5 acres located at 323 North Main. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Commissioners. This application for a conditional use permit involves the former Tooele City Police Station and is highlighted in red on your aerial photograph. The building has become a multi-tenant building and is currently occupied by a plumbing business office, some counseling offices, law offices, and a few other uses, all of which are permitted uses in the general commercial zone. As you can see, the property is located west of Main Street, east of 50th West, and then south of 400 North. The property currently bears the general commercial zoning district, as do properties to the north, south, and to the east. And then to the west, we have some R17 residential. The applicant is proposing to operate a small recreational vehicle dealership business inside of the existing structure. The business is small, but is required by the state of Utah to include designated parking spaces for the display of vehicles to be sold, as well as an office space. Automobile sales and rental in the general commercial zone requires a conditional use permit along with a public hearing. One concern with a multi-tenant building such as this is if there is sufficient parking for all of the businesses involved or located within the structure. Staff has worked closely with the building owner, who happens to be All Types Plumbing, to determine the amount of office space occupied by the various businesses and the amount of available parking. The staff report goes into great detail about the parking situation, and staff is satisfied that there is sufficient parking available to satisfy the needs of all the small businesses currently inside the building, including the proposed dealership. You can see on the submitted parking plan that the dealership will occupy 2 designated parking spaces on the far west side of the property. This item requires a public hearing. Notices were sent to and posted according to state and city law, and I have not received any comments or concerns up to this point. Staff is confident the proposed business will not result in any issues on the site and is recommending approval of the conditional use permit with the basic conditions listed in your staff report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, Mr. Agard. Any questions for staff on this agenda item? Commissioner Smith?
So since this is an automotive sales, is he going to be licensed by the state and get a state license?
Yes, that's why he's doing the conditional use permit, is because he needs to be licensed through the state. So.
Will that be required before he can get his license from us, get the approval from us?
I think he's already operating, so he's trying to finish up the whole process.
Okay, we had one a while back that we approved.
It wasn't this
and
the
never got
chicken
his
and the egg
license.
thing where the state has to give you a license, but they
It's
won't
really-
unless the county does.
It's
the
like
city
both
does.
of them,
Yeah.
they want them to happen at the same time, but we just had that issue where one guy just didn't bother with the state at all. So just want to make sure.
Yeah, he's working through the process. He's getting licensed with the state.
Commissioner, I have a comment.
Commissioner Gochus?
Andrew, I did call and leave a voice message. I didn't know if
Oh,
you
yes.
received that.
Thank you for bringing
Okay.
that up. There is an error in the staff report, particularly in the model motion. I included the wrong address. So when you make your motion, please use the address that's listed on the agenda and on the slides and so forth. The other address is incorrect. Copy and paste feature didn't work very well that day. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good catch, Melody. Any other questions for staff? If not, this item does require a public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Agard. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. If there's anyone from the public that wants to come forward and address this agenda item, now is the time.
So my name is Matt Bullock. I'm the owner of Epic Summer Recreation. I've gone through a lengthy process of obtaining a motor vehicle license with the Motor Vehicle Enforcement Division, and I have it with me. I am approved. Anyway, through the process, they list a series of steps in approval, and in that step, you just assume that everything, when you're approved, and they had somebody come out and inspect the property from the state and said, oh, you're approved, you're good to go. And so come to find out that, there is other issues and licensing that has to be approved through the city as well. And so basically the biggest issue over there has been that my business is going to be mainly seasonal. I am going to be selling year round. The majority of my business is small campers, small tent trailers, some bumper pull trailers, no RVs, very little. I have not done any motor vehicle sales at all yet, but that could be something that I could expand to. And so the majority of my sales are just small teardrops, campers, mainly pop-ups. That's kind of what I'm specializing in. And so again, I'd like to be able to broaden that out, but it is more of a seasonal business. The majority of my business is from March through August, through actually beginning of August, and then the business usually goes, for the trailers, just kind of goes to sleep. That's just because there's not many people are buying campers in the winter. But it would be nice to branch out, maybe get into some snowmobiles or some winter things. But if I get into the automobiles, that would be something that would be great, just to be able to kind of get me through the winter. But again, it would be something where I have about 2 to 3 vehicles or trailers for sale at any given time. So in comparison to a normal dealership like Bargain Buggies, so it's got 20 vehicles on their lot, I would only have 2 or 3 for sale. And this would be a part-time thing, just because I have a career elsewhere. And so this would just be something that would be on the side and would have very little traffic in relation to people coming and going. The spots that are required would be between, the state requires 3 spots technically to be able to be enforced to issue your dealer's license. And so that is their requirement for state law. And so through this approval, I'd just like to make it noted that I would need 3 spots, mainly 1 for myself if I'm at the business, 1 for the person buying the trailer, and the other spot would be solely just to be able to park that trailer, or if that person pulls in and needs to hook up, the 3 spots would be me, the purchaser, and the item that's being purchased. But there would rarely, in most cases, be 3 spots being taken up at any given time, or 3 things just left there at random. Again, maybe in the summer when it's busy, I can't say for sure that wouldn't happen, but it would ideally be just to complete the transaction, to show the item, and then it would take maybe a half hour to an hour. And so again, the traffic in comparison to the time, what the traffic sinks from other businesses in the business currently is far less, because they're cutting hair, or they've got people coming and going all day that are parked there, and I would only be there maybe once or twice a week, completing a sale. So I'm not sure if you have any other questions, but just wanted to be clear on the parking. Two would be sufficient for me, but by the state requirement, there just has to be 3 spots that would be designated in order for me to continue for the state. Now, they've already approved me, but it would just to be able to maintain what's needed on both sides. So that's all I have. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bullock. Anyone else want to come forward and address this item? If not, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. and bring it back to the commission for any questions, comments, concerns before I'll entertain a motion. Hearing nothing, does someone want to make a motion on this agenda item? Commissioner Hammer.
I move we approve the conditional use permit request by Matt Bullock, representing Epic Summer Recreation LLC, to authorize the use of automobile sales and rental to be conducted at 323 North Main. Application number P22-989, based on the findings and subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, dated August 31st, 2022.
There's a motion for approval by Commissioner Hammer. The chair will second that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. Commissioner Hammer.
Aye.
Commissioner Goches.
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Chair also votes aye. That passes 7-0. And because I'm failing at math today, that previous item, for the record, passed 6-1, not 5-1. So we'll correct that now. Sorry.
Mr. Bullock, are you
Kat.
going to have trailers in there that I can pull with my motorcycle? I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, public hearing and decision on a conditional use permit request by Morad Commercial to permit the retail store and business office use on 0.9 acres located at 154 South Main in the mixed-use general zoning district. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Commissioners. This conditional use permit involves another existing building, the Chamber of Commerce building, highlighted in red on the aerial photograph, located between 50 West and Main Street and just north of 200 South. Property is zoned MUG Mixed Use General, as are properties to the north, south, and to the east. And then to the west, we have some R17 zoning. This application is very similar to the one you just approved. The applicant, Moradcom, has submitted a request for a conditional use permit to authorize a small business to operate inside the existing building. The proposed business specializes in the wholesale and brokerage of raw apparel, fabrics, accessories, and IT accessories. In attempting to establish a use category for this business, staff assumed with the wholesale portion that there would be some retail involved in this business. And so the conditional use permit involves retail inside of an existing structure. The applicant, however, has since indicated the business will not involve any retail. Staff then categorized the proposed business as a business office inside of an existing structure. You will note that the motion and report involve both uses in the conditional use permit request. Due to the uncertainty of exactly what it is the applicant proposes to do, both use categories for the conditional use permit should cover what the applicant wishes to do inside of the existing structure. If they want to sell materials, the retail will cover it. If they just want to operate as an office, the business office will cover that. Similar to the previous application, parking is always an issue on multi-tenant buildings. There is plenty of parking to satisfy the entire building using an office space parking standard. In fact, they are greatly overparked. The staff report does go into detail about how those calculations were arrived upon. This proposed small business will not create any issues regarding parking or circulation, as there is plenty there for everything the building will generate. This item does require a conditional use permit, and notices were mailed and posted according to law. I have not received any comments or concerns. And then staff's recommending approval of the conditional use permit with the basic conditions listed in your staff report for both retail and business office inside of an existing structure. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, Mr. Agard. Any questions, concerns for staff on this item?
Commissioner, I have a question.
Commissioner Goches.
Since there's been a change to this, how it's going to be a business office that's operating within a structure, was there anything that indicated how the materials would be picked up or delivered? Is there a dock? Is that something that we need to consider if they're doing large volume? Because there's nothing that indicates what the volume of IT products are going to be or the wholesale.
Yeah, the applicant has not indicated any kind of volume or inventory, anything of that nature, so I don't have any answers for that.
Is that something that we should consider?
Well, he's a small business. He only occupies a very small business space. I don't anticipate he's going to generate a lot of inventory.
I've just worked in the delivery business. I worked for the Postal Service for 22 years, so I know what volume comes in and out of businesses with pickup and delivery. I do think it's something that we should consider.
Commissioner, I think, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sloan.
If I remember the chamber's lease correctly, because I leased space in there a few years ago, they're pretty tight on what can and can't be done in that space. There's no dock facility. There's a front door and a back door, and that's it. So whether we require it or they require it, the chamber isn't set up, the building is not set up for any sort of, like you're concerned, but for what that's worth.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Mr. Agard. This item does require a public hearing. We will now open up that hearing. If anyone wants to come forward and address this agenda item, now is their chance. Seeing no rush, we will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for any final discussion, comments, worries, or a motion. Commissioner Hamilton.
I move we approve the conditional use permit by Shazaz Morad authorizing the use of retail store located within an existing structure and business office located within an existing structure located at 154 South Main Street, application number P22-988, based on the findings and the subject to the condition list in the staff report dated August 31st, 2022.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Hamilton, seconded by Commissioner Sloan. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. Commissioner Hammer.
Aye.
Commissioner Goches.
Nay.
Commissioner Sloan.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Chair also votes aye. That is approved 6-1. Next on the agenda, public hearing and decision on a conditional use permit request by Tag and Go to permit car wash use on 1.28 acres located approximately 270 East, 2400 North. Mr. Agard.
Commissioners, the applicant reached out to me just prior to this meeting, is not able to be here. They would like to be here in order to answer any questions the commission might have, and they asked that I request the Planning Commission table the item until the next meeting so they can be here for this hearing. This item has been noticed for a public hearing, and so what the Planning Commission may want to do is go ahead and see if anybody wants to comment on this and then continue the public hearing to the next meeting. But the applicant's not here and he wants to be able to be here. So I'll leave it to you to decide what you want to do.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. What do we want to do? I'll speak first. I hate the continuing thing. Yeah, I hate it, but.
Commissioner, I did have a comment to this. It's another situation that I called Andrew and brought to his attention. The address is wrong on this, and the applicant, when they filed the application, listed 270 East, 2400 North. It's actually 270 West. It's west of SR 36. It's not east. If it were east, it would be close to the Pit Stop Cart Wash, which is already there. I don't think it's called Pit Stop anymore, but that needed to be corrected.
That is actually a correct address. It is east, north of the railroad tracks. The zero coordinate is Barra Boulevard.
Oh,
So it
okay.
is east.
So it is east.
It is a
Even
correct
though the
address.
street that it's located on says 270 West.
Correct. The actual, I don't know about the street sign that's there. That's actually a private road, but privately owned street. It's not a public street, that north-south in front of Home Depot. But the correct address for the site is an east coordinate.
Okay, when I Googled it, it brought up the wrong address, so thank you for bringing that to my attention. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, Jim, Andrew, I'm going to ask for advice. Can we hold the public hearing because it's been properly noticed and table the vote for 2 weeks?
I would recommend you hold the public hearing. I would also recommend that, first of all, I would recommend you hold the public hearing because it has been noticed for tonight.
Right.
So if there is anyone who is present based on that notice, they would certainly have a right to speak. However, I would further recommend that if you do in fact table it, that you leave the public hearing open as well.
Okay. All right. Well, then, we will go ahead and open the public hearing for this agenda item. If anyone wants to come forward and address it, now is the time.
You got nothing? See, that's something you can say in a public hearing.
All right, so does someone want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table this item until the next planning and zoning meeting and leave the public hearing open until then.
There's a motion to table the agenda item and leave the public hearing open. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
It'll be okay. It will.
I'll go home and take my meds.
We won't have a big crowd.
No discussion on the motion. We'll take it to a vote. Commissioner Hammer.
Aye.
Commissioner Gochus.
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. It is tabled and the public hearing will be open for 2 weeks.
Maybe 3.
Oh, no, 2 weeks. I guess we should actually, we should table that to a time.
To a time certain?
Yes.
The motion was sufficient for
Yeah, because we've already scheduled the meeting for
Very well.
back in January.
Good. All right, next on the agenda, recommendation on a subdivision preliminary plan request for Lexington Townhome Subdivision Phases 2 and 3 to create 53 townhome residential lots located at approximately 620 West Carroll's Way in the MR16 zoning district. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Commissioners. This preliminary subdivision plan involves the 6.4 acre parcel located at the southeast corner of the intersection of 680 West and 1200 North, also known as Carroll's Way. The property is highlighted in red on the aerial photograph. The property is currently zoned MR16, as are properties to the north, east, and west of the subject property. And then to the south of the subject property, we have some zoning of neighborhood commercial. The preliminary subdivision plan proposes to subdivide the existing 6-acre parcel into 53 townhouse-style residential lots, also associated limited common areas and common areas. The applicant has chosen to develop both phases 2 and 3 at the same time, and as such must process both phases concurrently. Phase 1 has already been approved, and for reasons beyond staff's understanding, Tooele County requested that the previously approved Phase 1 be included on the preliminary plan for Phases 2 and 3. So I'm asking, please ignore Phase 1. This is for Phases 2 and 3. It should be noted that this is not a site plan design review. However, the site plan does tie closely to the preliminary subdivision plan in establishing lot lines and boundaries. Therefore, staff has conducted some review in regards to site planning to ensure the preliminary subdivision plan will match the site plan and vice versa. The applicant still needs to submit a site plan application, and that review will come to the Planning Commission when it is ready for Planning Commission approval. The subdivision plan facilitates the creation of the lots for the purposes of ownership. Each lot is essentially the footprint of the townhome that will be constructed above. Each lot is approximately 25 feet wide and contains 1,217 square feet in its footprint. The plan also proposes the creation of limited common areas such as driveways. These areas are owned by the development but are limited in use to the adjacent townhouse owner. The common areas in this proposed subdivision include the roads, stormwater detention basins, guest parking areas, and landscaped open spaces around the perimeter and between the buildings. Roads within this development will be private roads and will be owned and maintained by the development. The interior roads will provide connections to 1200 North or Carroll's Way, which is a dedicated public right-of-way. Staff have reviewed the preliminary subdivision plan and are recommending approval of the plan with the basic conditions listed in the staff report. If you have any questions concerning this preliminary subdivision plan, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, Mr. Agard. Any questions on this agenda item for staff? Okay, this one does not require a public hearing. We're just looking for a recommendation. So does someone want to make a motion to that effect? Either positive or negative?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a recommendation.
Commissioner Jensen, please.
I make a motion, or I move that we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Lexington Townhomes Phase 2 and 3 preliminary subdivision plan request by Harold Irving, representing Lexington Townhomes LLC, creating 53 townhouse residential lots, application number P21-877, based on the findings and subjects to the conditions listed in the staff report dated September 7th, 2022.
Motion for a positive recommendation from Commissioner Jensen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sloan. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. Commissioner Hammer.
Aye.
Commissioner Goches.
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
No.
Chair votes aye. That moves forward with a positive recommendation, 6-1. Next on the agenda, public hearing and recommendation on an update to the moderate income housing plan element of the Tooele City General Plan. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Commissioners. The Utah State Legislature recently passed House Bill 462, which modifies many of the provisions of the original Senate Bill 34 legislation regarding moderate income housing plans as elements of a city's general plan. House Bill 462 made the following changes in regards to each city's moderate income housing plan. Number one, the bill clarifies the moderate income housing requirement and timing to amend the general plan, particularly the moderate income housing element of the general plan. Previously, the reporting deadline for cities was December 1st of each calendar year. The state, for reasons unknown, has decided to move that reporting deadline up to October 1st of this year. This change has placed some time constraints on cities to amend their plans and get them submitted to the state by the deadline. Number two, House Bill 462 requires cities to include an implementation plan to bring the modern income housing element to life. Previously, Tooele City had identified 7 strategies assembled by the state legislature in 2021 to encourage the construction and maintenance of modern income housing within Tooele City. Previously, all we had to do as a city was identify chosen strategies. The state now wants to see how we are going to implement those strategies and bring our plan to life. I am pleased to state that Tooele City is in great shape in regards to compliance with these new implementation requirements. We are already implementing each of the 7 strategies originally listed and are even implementing 2 additional strategies. Each of the 9 strategies identified in the draft of the Modern Income Housing Plan is already being done and will continue to be executed by Tooele City. This makes fulfilling our implementation plan easy because the strategy or strategies are already being implemented. It should also be noted the state requires cities to implement only 3 strategies from the extensive list provided by the legislature. Tooele City has implemented 9 of those strategies. Number 3, the bill also amends the list of strategies a city may use. House Bill 462 amends those strategies and changes the language from identifying possible methods to implementing those methods. The state also increased the list of strategies from 23 to 24. Number 4, House Bill 462 outlines the annual reporting requirement. This is more of a housekeeping mess that details the supplemental submittal documentation, posting the Modern Income Housing Plan to the city's website, and other submittal guidelines the staff must deal with. Really isn't any of concern to the Planning Commission or the City Council on this number. And then number 5, the bill adds priority incentives, restrictions for compliance with the Modern Income Housing requirement. In other words, the state will punish cities by withholding particular funds if a city refuses to comply with the mandates of House Bill 462. I don't know what those funds are that they could withhold, but since Tooele is in compliance, it will not be a problem for our fair city. Due to the shortened reporting time allotted by the state and other work responsibilities staff currently has, we have not had sufficient time to amend the income and housing statistics included in the plan. These statistics need to be updated according to the 2022 numbers and the 2020 U.S. Census. Staff will be working diligently on these numbers during the next calendar year and will bring you an updated moderate income housing plan for your review and approval by the next submittal deadline, which I hope will be December 1st, 2023 instead of October. Who knows what the state will do. The 2022 report only requires the implementation plans for the updated strategies. I did not go into any detail regarding these strategies in my presentation, or the city's implementation plans. However, the draft copy of the Moderate Income Housing Plan was provided in your packets, and the 9 implementation plans are included therein. Once the plan is adopted by the City Council, the plan will be posted on the city's website for public viewing, and we'll send our report into the state and be done with this year. So this item is a public hearing. Notices were published and posted according to the city and state laws, and I have not received any comments concerning the update to our Modern Income Housing Plan at this time. But we're in good shape in regards to our plan, and we'll keep working on it. If you have any questions, happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Mr. Agard. Any questions for staff on this agenda item?
Quite
Commissioner
quickly.
Sloan?
Mr. Agard, regarding one of the last things you said, as far as updating the income and housing statistics, are we statutorily required to use the census data from the last census, or can you use other sources? Here's my concern. Since that census was completed, housing prices have gone up astronomically. So their relevancy within our plan, if we go back to census data, doesn't, we may get through the process of getting our plan proposed, but from a practical standpoint, it does nothing for the people that the state wants us to help.
We are not statutorily required to use the U.S. Census. It's just a source that the state has recommended we can use.
If I can just supplement what Andrew said, what he just said is correct. However, the scope of information that the state requires and requests as a part of our plan pretty much leads you to the census for reliable data. But we do not have to follow that data and use that as a source. But effectively to comply, that's probably going to be your primary data source.
Would staff be amenable to me sending you some additional data from a real place, not something I make up at my kitchen table?
We are always open to that regardless of topic.
One of the joys or curses of living in a state that is a non-disclosure state, we're non-disclosure by custom, not by statute. But there's very few sources for actual housing data that are accurate, updated minute to minute, and the census ain't one of them. So there are plenty of folks in the area that can help supplement that study if you feel the need. And
we'd welcome it because that's going to be a big job. So any
the
data
income
we
stuff
can
I
get,
can't do anything for you, but
great.
the housing stuff I think we can.
Any other questions for staff? If not, this item does require a public hearing. If anyone wants to come forward and address the update on the Moderate Income Housing Plan, now is your chance for 2 minutes of fame.
I'll give you 3. The counter's already set.
Seeing,
I'm happy that we're in good shape.
are you going to come up here and say that, Claudia?
Sweet.
We always rope you into it.
I'm Kalani Mascherino, and I'm a member of this community, and I'm happy to know that Tooele is in good shape and in compliance with House Bill 462 and its requirements.
Thank you.
Don't forget to go to the back and sign it. Yep.
Seeing no one else rush the podium, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for any comments, concerns, questions, or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, a comment, and then I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Commissioner Sloan.
Having been at the other side of Capitol Hill, watching this plan and how it's changed over the last half a decade, I'm really happy, as Ms. Mascherino said, Tooele City is, relative to other municipalities in this state, kicking it. They're ahead of the curve. They're doing things the right way. When they were required to do 3, they were doing 5. When it was 5, they're doing 7, and now they're doing 9. And the cities that this plan and this law, HB 462, are aimed at, those are some of them that are not necessarily playing by the rules. I'm happy to say that Tooele City is not one of those that they're aiming at. So congratulations, and that's staff. Well done.
Thank you, Commissioner Sloan.
That said, if everybody's ready, let's, I move we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend the Moderate Housing element of the general plan and adopt the draft Twila City Moderate Income Housing Plan 2022 based upon the findings listed in the staff report dated October 1st, 2019.
Second.
So motion for a positive recommendation by Commissioner Sloan, seconded by Commissioner Hamilton. Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll take it to a vote. Commissioner Hammer.
Aye.
Commissioner Gochus.
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Chair also votes aye. That moves forward with a positive recommendation, 7-0. Next on the agenda are city council reports. Councilmember Manzione.
Hi, everyone. I don't have much tonight, just a couple of things from our meeting. We had more than two, but we had two public hearings that you might be interested in. One, because you brought it up last time, was a public hearing on the petition for the Canyon Springs annexation. It was just a public hearing, so no decision or anything. And then we had a public hearing and motion on the amending the zoning map for 800 North and First East. I think you guys had a last meeting that was out of non-conforming because it was MR25 and now we changed it to MR20. And then we approved a couple of subdivisions that you guys had in the past. That was it. Unless you have questions.
Anyone have questions?
They also said nice things about the Planning Commission.
We did
Yeah,
say
I know
nice
it.
things about the Planning Commission.
Liars.
We always say nice things about the Planning Commission.
I don't know why. Yeah. Warranted or not.
Always warranted.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next on the agenda, the review and approval of the minutes for the meeting held on August 24th, 2022. Any fixes, corrections, edits to those minutes? If not, the chair moves that we approve the minutes from the August 24th, 2022 meetings. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Hammer. Any discussion on that? If not, we'll take it to a vote. Commissioner Hammer.
Aye.
Commissioner Gochus.
Aye.
Commissioner Sloan.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Chair also votes aye. Those minutes are approved, 7-0. Someone, do you need to talk before we adjourn?
Oh.
Mr. Bolser, approaching the rostrum, please enlighten
Thank you.
us.
I apologize. It's nice to speak from here this evening. I just wanted to bring your attention to a couple of emails that I sent you regarding some training opportunities. One is in October that does require a registration. I have heard from a couple of you with either interest or unavailability. Please let me know prior to your next meeting if you're interested in attending that, and we'll make sure that you get registered. That is one that is in Sandy, so you would have to do a little commuting, but we can take care of that as well. The other I just sent out earlier today regarding an opportunity that will actually be here in town. It's not a training opportunity, but an opportunity to participate in a planning discussion. I do not know if we need to register for that or not yet. I'm looking into that, but if you can just let me know your interest. That's on the 29th of this month, so it's coming up fairly quickly. Just let me know what your interest in that is, and I will make sure that any reservations or accountability is taken care of for you. And then finally, I just wanted to get your feedback on one item. Your next meeting is another training opportunity. What topics would you like to hear? While you're thinking about that, you mentioned earlier, Chairman, that we have a new planning commissioner. His name is John Proctor. He had a prior engagement, so he wouldn't be here this evening, but he will be at your next meeting. And he has already completed the powers and duties training, so he is eligible to serve right away. He is excited to get going. We're happy to have him and have a full commission again. So we'll welcome him formally at your next meeting, but I just wanted to make sure that you were all aware that he's ready to go. So. Now, what topics would you like to hear?
Anyone have ideas for topics? I got nothing tonight. Allison, Melody, anything that you want to learn about since you're relatively new?
Is Jim just going to surprise us?
Yeah, I think the last time I requested annexation, which you provided, I always think there's good information in the general plan regarding land use, regarding, maybe something would be appropriate for parks and recreation and density, with
Okay.
I brought that up to the council.
Yeah, those are kind of different topics, but we can perhaps see if we can finagle some visitors from our Parks Department to come talk with you.
Be great.
Sounds good.
Come up with some good movie references to go with it.
Well, I can do that, for
That-
sure.
that I'm sure.
That'll probably be the best part of the presentation from my
Generally is,
aspect,
yep.
what I can provide for you, but our Parks folks will do a good job for you, so I'll see if I can arrange that.
Keeps my attention.
Yeah. I'll see if I can arrange that, and if they're unavailable for your next meeting, perhaps we'll just go grab bag and surprise you.
That works as
Thank
well.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolser. Last on the agenda, motion to adjourn. Does someone want to make such a motion? So moved. Thank you.